The 1960s was a decade that started off screaming. Psycho titillated audiences showing Janet Leigh in a bra before serving up one of the most shocking death scenes ever committed to screen. It still shocks some 60 years later. Both Psycho and Peeping Tom released the same year, and both share comment on voyeurism, with the latter going as far as implicating the viewer in its POV murder shots. Introducing such a lurid concept was enough to keep Peeping Tom pulled from theaters and all but kill director Michael Powell's career. With the introduction of the Oscar for Best Foreign Language Film in the late 40s, genre movies from abroad began to light up theaters. This includes horror classics like Eyes Without a Face and Quaiden. By 1968, the Hays Code, which delineated what violent, sex, and themes could be depicted on American screens, was all but gone. And that same year, the Night of the Living Dead birthed a new age of independent cinema and the zombie genre itself. Speaking of birth, Rosemary's Baby also came out in '68, capping a decade of memorable psychological thrillers like The Innocents and Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. For this list, we included titles with at least 10 reviews, and according to their score and average review, are ranked by Adjusted Tomato Meter. So get ready for some classic screams as we count down our list of the best horror movies of the 1960s. Number 10, Quaiden. Taking its title from an archaic Japanese word meaning ghost story, this anthology adapts 4 folk tales. A penniless samurai marries for money with tragic results. A man stranded in a blizzard is saved by Yuki the Snow Maiden, but his rescue comes at a cost. Blind musician Hoichi is forced to perform for an audience of ghosts. An author relates the story of a samurai who sees another warrior's reflection in his teacup. Starring Katsuo Nakamura, Rentaro Mikuni, Keiko Kishi, and directed by Masaki Kobayashi. Critics say, exquisitely designed and fastidiously ornate, Masaki Kobayashi's ambitious anthology, Quaiden, operates less as a frightening example of horror and more as a meditative tribute to Japanese folklore. Number 9, Persona. Famed stagstress Elizabeth Vogler suffers a moment of blankness during a performance and the next day lapses into total silence. Advised by her doctor to take time off to recover from what appears to be an emotional breakdown, Elizabeth goes to a beach house on the Baltic Sea with only Alma, a nurse, as company. Over the next several weeks, as Alma struggles to reach her mute patient, the two women find themselves experiencing a strange emotional convergence. Starring Bibi Andersson, Liv Ullmann, Gunnar Jorn Strand, and directed by Ingmar Bergman. Critics say arguably Bergman's finest film, Persona explores the human condition with intense curiosity, immense technical skill, and beguiling warmth.
Elisabeth, förlåt om jag skrämde dig.
Jag är inte Elisabeth.
Inte har jag några krav. Jag har inte velat störa dig. Tror inte jag förstår. Doktorn har förklarat både det ena och det andra. Svårast är att förklara för din lilla pojke. Jag gör så gott jag kan. Det finns något som ligger djupare, som är svårt att få syn på. Man älskar någon, rättare man säger att man älskar någon. Det är fattbart, påtagligt som ord alltså.
Herr Fågler, jag är inte er hustru.
Man blir också älskad. Man bildar en liten gemenskap. Det ger trygghet. Man ser en möjlighet att uthärda, inte sant?
Number 8, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? Jane Hudson is an aging child star left to care for her wheelchair-bound sister Blanche, also a former child actress. Stuck living together in a mansion in Old Hollywood, Blanche plots to get even with Jane for the car crash that left her crippled years earlier. But Jane is desperate to keep Blanche imprisoned as she plans a new rise to fame and tries to hide Blanche's existence from doctors, visitors, and neighbors while she devises a way to get rid of her sister. Starring Bette Davis, Joan Crawford, Victor Buono, and directed by Robert Aldrich. Critics say Whatever Happened to Baby Jane combines powerhouse acting, rich atmosphere, and absorbing melodrama in service of a taut thriller with thought-provoking subtext.
Who was that at the door earlier?
Elvira.
Where is she now? In the kitchen?
No, I gave her the day off. She has a pretty hard time considering. I told her to come back next week. Oh, Blanche. You know we got rats in the cellar?
Number 7, The Birds. Melanie Daniels meets Mitch Brenner in a San Francisco pet store and decides to follow him home. She brings with her the gift of 2 lovebirds, and they strike up a romance. One day, birds start attacking children at Mitch's sister's party, and eventually a huge assault starts on the town from more attacking birds. Starring Rod Taylor, Tippi Hedren, Suzanne Pleshette, and directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Critics say, proving once again that buildup is the key to suspense, Alfred Hitchcock successfully turned birds into some of the most terrifying villains in horror history in The Birds.
I want you to go as quietly as possible. Do not make a sound until I tell you to run. Then run as quickly as you can. Now, does everybody understand? Yes, Mrs. Hayward. All right, John, you lead the way.
Number 6, The Innocents. Based on the Henry James story, The Turn of the Screw, a psychological thriller about a woman who takes a governess job for 2 orphans in a Victorian home. She begins to see what she believes are ghosts and suspects the children's bizarre behavior is a result of supernatural powers. Starring Deborah Kerr, Martin Stevens, Pamela Franklin, and directed by Jack Clayton. Critics say, creepily atmospheric, The Innocents is a stylishly crafted, chilling British ghost tale with Deborah Kerr at her finest.
And when did you first see and hear of such things?
Why, I made them up.
Who taught them to you?
I told you, they just came into my head.
What were they? Shall I tell you who taught them to you?
I won't ever again, I promise.
Shall I tell you who taught you? The things you've done, the things you've said? Shall I tell you his name?
You don't fool me. I know why you keep on and on. It's because you're afraid. You're afraid you might be mad. So you keep on and on. Trying to make me admit something that isn't true. Trying to frighten me the way you frightened Flora. But I'm not Flora. I'm no baby. You think you can run to my uncle with a lot of lies. But he won't believe you. Not when I tell him what you are. A damn hussy. A damn dirty-minded hag. You never fooled us. We always knew.
Number 5, Peeping Tom. Loner Mark Lewis works at a film studio during the day and at night takes racy photographs of women. Also, he's making a documentary on fear, which involves recording the reactions of victims as he murders them. He befriends Helen, the daughter of the family living in the apartment below his, and he tells her vaguely about the movie he's making. She sneaks into Mark's apartment to watch it and is horrified by what she sees, especially when Mark catches her. Starring Karl-Heinz Bohm, Moira Shearer, Anna Massey, and directed by Michael Powell. Critics say Peeping Tom is a chilling, methodical look at the psychology of a killer and a classic work of voyeuristic cinema. Number 4, Eyes Without a Face. Dr. Jen Essier is riddled with guilt after an accident that he caused disfigures the face of his daughter, the once beautiful Christiane, who outsiders believe is dead. Dr. Jen Essier, along with accomplice and laboratory assistant Louise, kidnaps young women and brings them to the Jen Essier mansion. After rendering his victims unconscious, Dr. Jen Essier removes their faces and attempts to graft them onto Christiane's. Starring Pierre Brasseur, Alida Valli, Edith Scobb, and directed by George Franju. Critics say a horrific tale of guilt and obsession, Eyes Without a Face is just as chilling and poetic today as it was when it first released.
Comment ça, mais si. La banlieue, c'est très commode. Très commode.
Peut-être bien après tout, mais je ne voudrais pas rentrer trop tard à Paris ce soir. J'ai rendez-vous avec une amie. Je vous dirai demain.
Demain. Il sera trop tard, mon petit.
Number 3, Rosemary's Baby. Y-Fish Rosemary Woodhouse and her struggling actor husband Guy moved to a New York City apartment building with an ominous reputation and odd neighbors Roman and Minnie Costavet. When Rosemary becomes pregnant, she becomes increasingly isolated, and the diabolical truth is revealed only after Rosemary gives birth. Starring Mia Farrow, John Cassavetes, Ruth Gordon, and directed by Roman Polanski. Critics say Rosemary's Baby is a frightening tale of Satanism and pregnancy that is even more disturbing than it sounds thanks to convincing and committed performances by Mia Farrow and Ruth Gordon.
What have you done to it? What have you done to its eyes?
He has his father's eyes.
What are you talking about? Guy's eyes are normal. What have you done to him, you maniac?
Satan is his father, not Guy. He came up from hell and begat a son of mortal woman.
Hail, Satan!
Hail, Satan!
Satan is his father, and his name is Adrian. He shall overthrow the mighty and lay waste their temples. He shall redeem the despised and wreak vengeance in the name of the burned and the tortured.
Number 2, Night of the Living Dead. A disparate group of individuals takes refuge in an abandoned house when corpses begin to leave the graveyard in search of fresh human bodies to devour. The pragmatic Ben does his best to control the situation, but when the reanimated bodies surround the house, the other survivors begin to panic. As any semblance of order within the group begins to dissipate, the zombies start to find ways inside, and one by one, the living humans become the prey of the deceased ones. Starring Dwayne Jones, Judith O'Dea, Carl Hardman, and directed by George A. Romero. Critics say George A. Romero's debut, Night of the Living Dead, set the template for the zombie film and features tight editing, realistic gore, and a sly political undercurrent.
Stop it! You're ignorant.
They're coming for you, Barbara.
Stop it! You're acting like a child.
They're coming for you. Look, there comes one of them now.
He'll hear you.
Here he comes now. I'm getting out of here.
Johnny. Oh! No! No! Johnny! Help
And before we reveal number 1, here are some honorable mentions. Village of the Damned. One day, the peaceful village of Midwich is cast into a mysterious sleep for several hours, but with no obvious consequences. Soon, all the women of childbearing age turn out to be pregnant. Their children are all born at the same time and grow quickly into very spooky young people with strange white blonde hair and eerie eyes. Starring George Sanders, Barbara Shelley, Michael Gwynn, and directed by Wolf Rilla. Critics say chilling performances and a restrained, eerie atmosphere make Village of the Damned both an unnerving parable of its era and a timeless classic.
You're not thinking of atomic energy. You're thinking of a brick wall.
A brick wall. A brick wall. I must think of a brick wall. A brick wall. I must think of a brick wall. A brick wall. Brick wall. I must think of a brick wall. It's almost 8:30. Brick wall. Only a few seconds more. Brick wall. Brick wall. Brick wall. A brick wall.
The Devil Rides Out. When the Duc de Richelieu and Rex Van Ryn arrive at a fashionable party thrown by Richelieu's protege, Simon Arron, they soon realize that the party is in fact a gathering of satanic cult, led by the High Priest Makata, that plans to initiate the beautiful Tanith that night. It's up to de Richelieu and Van Ryn to defeat the devil-worshipping Makata and save innocent young Tanith and the others from a terrible fate. Starring Christopher Lee, Charles Gray, Nike Origi, and directed by Terrence Fisher. Nyla Scargill from Exquisite Terror says, as a classic tale of good versus evil, the film required a strong representative of either side and does not disappoint.
In the hall. No way! No!
The Sorcerers. A professor and his wife can feel the sensations of a mod British teen whose mind they control. Starring Boris Karloff, Catherine Lacey, Ian Ogilvy, and directed by Michael Reeves. Variety says Boris Karloff brings his familiar adroit horror touch to the role of an aging, somewhat nutty ex-stage mesmerist who aims to complete his experiments by dominating the brain of a young subject.
Come and sit down, young man.
What, in this thing?
Yes, sit down.
I'm too young to die.
You said you wanted something new, something you'd never done before.
Yeah, but I didn't think that...
No harm will come to you, we guarantee it.
Sit down while I adjust these.
What's it supposed to do?
Dazzling, indescribable experiences. Complete abandonment with no thought of remorse.
Intoxication with no hangover. Ecstasy with no consequence.
Right then. See what you can come up with.
Eagle 2 to Blue Leader. Relax. Try to clear your mind. Empty your mind of all thought.
And finally, number 1, Psycho. Phoenix secretary Marion Crane, on the lam after stealing $40,000 from her employer in order to run away with her boyfriend, Sam Loomis, is overcome by exhaustion during a heavy rainstorm. Traveling on the back roads to avoid the police, she stops for the night at the ramshackle Bates Motel and meets the polite but highly strung proprietor, Norman Bates, a young man with an interest in taxidermy and a difficult relationship with his mother. Starring Anthony Perkins, Janet Leigh, Vera Miles, and directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Critics say infamous for its shower scene, but immortal for its contribution to the horror genre. Because Psycho was filmed with tact, grace, and art, Hitchcock didn't just create modern horror, he validated it.
Mrs. Bates.
Well, my friends, that about does it for us. Be sure to stay tuned to the Rotten Tomatoes channel for more of the entertainment content you love. Until next time, I'm your host, Naz Perez, and we'll see you back here for more Top 10s on the Rotten Tomatoes Countdown.